Good morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. It's a Monday. We haven't done a Monday in a while. We've been off on holidays, back to the grind. Yeah, we got to work a whole 5 days in a row this week. I hope you had a good weekend. You know, it was football weekend, right? The final regular season game. Did your team get in? Did they not get in? Black Monday, right? The coaches getting fired and other coaches probably setting up for contract extensions because their teams are in the playoffs. And then tonight, the national championship game, Washington, Michigan. And, you know, Eric always used to say the end of the holiday season really wasn't until the Super Bowl. That's the official end. So we're not quite done yet. The Super Bowl and the Phoenix Open, that'll be the end of the holiday season. But yeah, tonight the big game. Freezing here in the Valley of the Sun. It was in the upper 20s. Where I live, most of the valley below freezing. Yesterday, my buddies and I, we had a golf club event, and we got the hail. We actually made the turn. It was freezing out there, and it rained all morning. We had no business being out there anyway, but we're out. You know, we're not that smart. We're out there, and thankfully, on the ninth green, and it started raining. I mean, it was cold. Let's just say there wasn't a lot of good golf being played. It's hard to golf when you got like 4 layers on because it was in the low 40s by that time. The wind was blowing. The rain had started up again. We get into the clubhouse, and then here came the hail. I will tell you, the desert is beautiful. With, you know, and it looked like it wasn't snow, it was a little hail, but the fairways and the greens were all white, and of course the cactus had, it was quite something. Let's just say this though, Jason, I did not wait to see if it got better. I said, yeah, I've had enough, put my clubs in my car and went home.
So was this hail or was this sleet? Sleet's like that soft stuff. Did you actually pick some up? Was it a rock or was it more soft?
I didn't pick any. You know, it's funny. I didn't pick it up, and you know, we don't see this very all of us. You know, we had our phones out, and people are taking pictures of it. There was a debate. We didn't have it, but there's somebody said, "Oh, look at the hail," and one of the guys sitting in the club was like, "Oh, that's sleet. That's not hail." And I don't know. Some debate ensued as to what it was. But I called it hail. I don't know. I didn't pick any up.
Yeah, the difference is hail can actually physically do damage, and sleet is like little Frosty the Snowman's falling out of the sky. That's pretty much the difference.
I don't think this could have done any damage. There wasn't very big, but it wasn't snow either. It was more like little ice droplets. But you know what was funny is as I was driving home, like it was pretty fast. It moved in pretty fast, and then all of a sudden the sun came out, and I was like, oh. And some of my friends stayed around. They texted me later. They actually finished. I was like, yeah, no, I was done already. I was wet. I was cold. Not used to that this morning. Really cold again. But winter has finally hit Arizona. I got the heat on in the office, so I'll take it. I'll say this right now. Once you've been in Arizona long enough, you'll take 115 every day of the week over, 30 degrees, 40 degrees. We just can't handle it.
Yeah, I don't like snow and cold either, Joe, but, I've grown up here, so I'm all right with it. We haven't had hardly any significant snow yet, so I'm wondering if we're going to get hit hard or if these really mild winters are sort of the norm for Colorado, because we haven't had a lot of really bad blizzards or things that maybe for the guys that have moved here, it's horrible snows, but I haven't seen anything like that for a long time around here.
Well, you know what? You just jinxed it. That's just what you've done now. Now you've all but guaranteed it. Now you're gonna get hit with a doozy. Now that you said You told Mother Nature, well, we really haven't had anything in a while, but we'll see how it goes. Speaking of doozies, we are going to get CPI and PPI this week. We have reports coming out of the government about, hey, we're trying to come up with a deal for the continuing resolutions spending. It's not good. And what I mean by that is a lot of spending. There's really not a lot of cuts. Nothing's been approved. There's nothing even being voted on. There is a framework. Put it this way, for the Republicans, the big win is we're going to cut $10 billion of the IRS. Now, it hit me today because it's bothered me all, well, again, it didn't come out till yesterday, but it's bothered me all night last night, this morning, because I'm like, what are these guys thinking? What are they doing up there? We got to get spending under control. We just have to. I mean, it's ridiculous to say we got to spend more than when we were spending during COVID. That makes no sense. I mean, we shut down the whole country. We were paying everybody more than what they made to work. I mean, how can we spend? This is what we're doing. It's idiocracy.
Interest on the debt.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I think this was a ploy now all along. When the Democrats had control, they knew, let's pass some outrageous number. And then if the Republicans get back in charge, they can chop off a few dollars and claim victory. Because $80 billion is now $70 billion, and somehow that's a great deal. Yeah, I don't think so. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason on this Monday. I have no idea. The meme stock that is the Treasury markets continuing this crazy action. The Treasury, the 10-year note was at 406 like an hour ago. It's now down to 397. Why? I don't know. I can't tell you. The Dow's down 100. The S&P's up 20. The NASDAQ is up 160. Obviously, Boeing apparently, you just don't want to be on a new plane. How's that? The Boeing Max, right? One of the windows blew out in one of its planes over the weekend. Apparently, they're looking for some bolt. Somebody in Oregon found it in their backyard. But they've been grounded. Yeah, I'll take the plane that's been flying for the last 10, 15, 20 years without a problem. Thank you very much. And then iPhone sales from Apple cratering. But apparently, I think everyone's starting to look forward to PPI, CPI, in the first mention from the Federal Reserve about ending quantitative tightening. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But again, I think 2024 is going to be the year of confusion and chaos. And, obviously it's a political year. I think that's going to be, are we going to get Biden and Trump? Or is it going to be two different people altogether? Or what is going to be the Supreme Court taking up the Colorado case? It's a lot to think about, and maybe having your money a little more diversified makes a lot of sense. Don't forget our friends at YRefi, because it's not correlated to the stock market. It's just not. I mean, what happens if CPI or PPI is hotter? YRefi doesn't care. Well, it's lower. They don't care. The Fed stops quantitative tightening. They pause it. They go slower. They raise it. It doesn't matter. More war breaks out. So what? It's a fixed rate of return. You know what you're going to get every single month, up to 10.25% returns. Check them out. InvestYRefi.com. That's the word invest, the letter Y, REFY.com. Or just call them at 888-Y-REFI-24. Normally we'd have Joey on. Joey's back. He's busy. He's got meetings stacked up. If you got one of those old 401ks, just remember the IRS changing the rules when it comes to not only these old 401ks, but also if you need to start taking your distributions, the IRS has said, hey, you know what? If you don't do it, can you imagine? Maybe you're of age. You don't even realize you're of age because you're a lot of people. Hey, I'm still working. I'm 73. I'm still working. I got to work forever. You got to start taking this distributions. If you don't, a 25% penalty now from the IRS. So make sure you reach out to Joey, 602-909-9048. And he can help you out with all those 401k and IRA. And, of course, most importantly, especially if you're getting ready to retirement or you're getting to that point where you want to start handing down wealth, he's the guy you need to talk to. Make sure you give Uncle Sam the least amount of money possible. But, Jason, the biggest commercial real estate company in China filed for bankruptcy over the weekend. Now, this is like BlackRock filing for bankruptcy. It was huge. On top of that, CalPERS. Remember them? You know, we're going to start talking about all these things that we used to talk about. CalPERS, that's the California pension system. And these guys, I don't know who does. You know what? They need to call Joey. That's what. You know what? CalPERS needs to call Joey because they obviously don't know how to read what's going on in the world out there. They now say that they need to borrow $30 billion. As Bloomberg is reporting that the $318 billion California State Teachers Retirement System, so this is a branch off of CalPERS, right? This is the teacher's pension, because they need to raise funds because what they're calling asset sales might trigger fire sales. What are they talking about? Commercial-backed real estate. CalSTRS is saying that they need more cash flow because if they have to sell assets instead, it's going to get a lot worse. So this is kind of like the bank saying, well, we've got money. It's just tied up right now in these things called treasuries. And if we sell those treasuries in the marketplace to get the money you need to pay your mortgages and to pay all your bills and all of those things, it's going to be such a huge loss that it's going to cause a fire sale, right? Nobody will want us to do anything. So they set up that emergency program with the Fed where the Fed's paying them way more than anybody else would. But here, Jason, they're saying we've got to raise money because we actually can't sell the assets we bought with your money, because if we did, it would get so little value on it, we'd essentially bankrupt the whole system.
Yeah, well, and that's a tough thing for people who are listening to you, Joe, which is these assets they're holding have value, but there's so much of it that if they start dumping it onto the market, that's what supply and demand's all about. It's just going to drive the assets value down so dramatically. And so, Joe, it's very much how a pyramid scheme, how a Ponzi scheme works, right? You know, you got too much of this stuff to where nobody wants it, and then you go to cash in and there's not enough buyers. And it just takes a tipping point where a couple of guys high up in whatever organization, let's just say this California pensions, like, you know what, we better make a run for it. Be quiet, but let's dump. Because you know what they're afraid of? That's just one pension fund in one state. What about Illinois? What about New York? What about these other states that are going to dump their pensions?
A lot of pensions have this stuff. They just do, you know. And, of course, they're justified. Well, it's not our fault. This was one of our best performing investments we had until COVID. And then COVID came, and I feel like, well, gosh, didn't you guys do anything to hedge yourself a little bit? I mean, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what was going to happen, did you? But think about this. They need to borrow 10% of their entire portfolio to just try to save their system from all of these huge losses. And again, this was a pension that before COVID, it's still not anywhere close to being funded. But again, all of these things, Jason, they got covered up. Money can cover up a lot of problems for a little while. And then unfortunately, once the money kind of dries up and there's no more new money, you're right back into the same problem you had before.
Didn't these guys learn just a handful of years ago about mortgage-backed securities? Right. Whose bright idea? Right. Whose bright idea is like, well, this is commercial business, and some knucklehead was like, well, look, business is coming back. It's all better now. And not one guy in there was like, well, there is this Federal Reserve, this too big to fail thing that happened, and they all just got bought up and saved. The money runs out after a while, so maybe we shouldn't get into commercial-backed securities. Maybe we should try somewhere else. Like you said, Joey would have been a much better place to go. Anybody that's like, maybe commercial-backed securities is a little bit like mortgage-backed securities, and they didn't really fix that. It's so interesting, Joe.
I know what Joey probably said. Have you been to San Francisco lately? Right?
No.
If you don't want to take my word for it, right? Why don't you just get in your car and start driving to all these office buildings that you've invested in, and just go floor to floor and see if anybody's in them, right?
Yeah.
It'll probably give you a good idea of what's to come.
Or just take a trip to Manhattan, one of the financial centers of the universe, and go look at their downtown about how many empty buildings there are there, where it's supposed to be the most financially robust place on the planet, and look how many empty buildings there are there. That should tell you that commercial Blackstone, yeah.
They keep getting redemptions month after month after month after month. And, of course, they've got it set up where they don't honor all the redemptions. Well, we're only allowed to sell this much of it. See, kind of what the problem for the teachers' pensions in California is. See, I guess they're a little smarter, right? Well, we've got rules in place. We only can sell 1% of the portfolio every quarter. So that's all the redemptions. I know you guys want $4 billion, right? But now we're gonna dole out, $500 million because we're at the maximum where for these teacher pensions, apparently borrowing $30 billion is going to be a better option than actually having to sell these quote unquote investments. And again, you start thinking about the reality of it. I mean, best case scenario, 'cause I don't know what they bought, but best case scenario, it's probably down 20%. Worst case scenario, they could be upside down 50, 60, 70%. I don't know exactly what they have, but if they've got a lot of San Francisco, they got a problem.
Yeah, California's a big state, so they can have a very big problem. And there's some big cities in that state, Joe. There's some big cities.
Hopefully, they bought some stuff not in California. Over the holiday, two of California's non-liberals were at my house, family members of mine, and all as they could talk about is how everybody wants to leave California. Everybody. It's so expensive. The taxes are ridiculous, right? And they just keep spending and spending and spending. And now that the money's run out, the first year of no more COVID money, California's got a $68 billion budget deficit in a single year. And wait till next year.
Well, it's turning into the land of the rich, Joe. That's talk about a case for the middle class being destroyed. I remember Taxi Driver. Robert De Niro way back in the 70s. And there's a scene where the cab driver's kind of sitting around talking and talking about how California is doing this and that. This is in the 70s. Oh yeah, those guys are way ahead of us. Or oh yeah, those guys are leading the way. Well, they are. Look at, they're leading the way in a mass exodus of the middle class, and where only rich elites are going to be able to survive. Because I'll bet the taxes drop and things get back to being somewhat normal in California once they've fleeced the middle class right out of there. Because if the rich don't want to get more taxes, they're going to make up the difference, are they, Joe? You watch, California will just change in the future. 20 years, maybe.
The government revised all the jobs. We had the government jobs number on Friday, a little on the high side, but then they took almost 500,000 jobs away from the first 11 months. And everyone say, well, if they said 260, forget it wasn't that high, right? They're just they're just completely inaccurate. But according to the jobs they took away, now this isn't me, I didn't do it. Mish Talk, he does a great job. He's the one that did all of the data on this. He said when you looked at the numbers, over 60% of all the job growth in 2023 was government and social assistance. That's where the big growth in jobs was last year. Eight 800-951-0592, Patriot Radio News Hour, Joe and Jason. It's been a wild ride on gold this morning. Gold went all the way down to 2020. This is the second, I think it's the third time now, after gold's been back above 2,000, that it's gone down to this level, bounced off. Right now, gold's at 2040. It's still down about $8, but at 2040. Remember, we got CPI and PPI this week. I think they're going to be on the soft side. So gold, I think, looking pretty good here. Holding that 2020 level, building that new higher level of support. And silver's actually higher, not a lot, but silver's higher right now, up 5 cents, just under $23.40. We have some U.S. $5 liberties today. Those are the quarter ounce pieces. I don't have a ton of them. I got like 30, 40 of them. $575. So if you're looking for some fractional gold, and this is the old gold, the pre-33 gold. You can buy it, sell it, trade it, right? It's the most private way to buy it. We got those on sale today. $575 at 800-951-0592. And we've gotten, over the weekend, the very first mention from someone, a Fed governor, talking about quantitative tightening and talking about it ending. So far, what we've got now, we're not talking about that. We haven't talked about that. We got a ways to go. Lori Logan, the new head of the Dallas Federal Reserve, over the weekend said that the Federal Reserve should first slow the pace of their balance sheet reduction and then gradually end the program. Okay, I know that's not a lot. Of course, that's how they're going to do it, right? They're, hey, we're going to go from 95 billion to 75 billion to 50 billion to 30 billion to zero. But said that she wants to do this to eliminate the likelihood of having to suddenly stop it. And I think that's important. Believe it or not, you're like, well, why is that important? Why? Because it tells you a couple of things. Remember a few weeks back, Bank of America, and I forget the guy's name. I had it. I should have wrote it down. He's been really good at poking holes in the Fed. He back in 2019 in May warned the Fed, hey, we got a huge crisis coming. You guys may want to, stop. This was when Janet Yellen, right? Stop the quantitative. Well, she had started it anyway. Get rid of the quantitative tightening. Of course, we had the temper tantrum and all that nonsense. Jason, just that comment. Hey, we need to start doing it gradually so we don't have to stop it abruptly, tells me that at least this time around, somebody at the Fed is realizing that this program is coming to an end. Whether they want to admit it or not, it's coming to an end, and we better start talking about reducing it and coming up with a schedule before we have another problem.
Seems like the next headline coming up is going to be the Fed buys the California pension out of their troubles. Isn't that where we're headed? We're going to try to do this thing slowly, but when things start failing, it's time to buy up all these assets and try to balance the system. How much are they going to be able after they stop tapering, Joe? Stop. Selling off their balance sheet. How long is it going to be before they just start loading up? That the whole fake, that isn't part of the debt, it's part of the Fed's balance sheet. How long before they're just, the things are going to fail, the amount they're going to have to buy. Look at back in March when they had to help bail out and buy into those
Silicon
failing
Valley
banks.
went under, yeah. Signature
That reverse repo market had that little spike there because they did a little buying, right? And they put it there,
Yep.
and they put the cash there. Yeah, it's coming. It's absolutely coming. And Joe, we're seeing it through our business, but I'm seeing it through other businesses. That California story it's a good one to cover because it shows more on the ground level what's getting ready to happen.
Yeah, and Bloomberg now saying they expect this to start happening in June. That kind of makes a little bit of sense to me. But put it this way: the fact that this is starting to be talked about. And because this is what the Federal Reserve likes to do, right? Oh no, we're letting the markets know we're getting ready to end this. This is a reason why we expect much higher gold prices, much higher silver prices. Somebody, gosh, who was it? I got it sent to me. One of our listeners had sent this to me. The AI, that's what it was. Yeah, AI. Fidbold News is where this came from. They asked two different AIs where silver was heading for in 2024. The first of the AIs, I want to say, was I forget. The chat AI
GPT.
app. Yes,
Yep.
Chat GPT. They were talking about a silver price in the 30s, between $30 and $34. But that chat box, it was a little smarter because it said, but hey, it could also be 18 to 20. So kind of useless, right? Well, it's either going to be a lot higher, but I guess it's possible that it could go a little lower down the line. And then they asked, I want to say it was Google's app, I forget the name of it. It also had a price in the 30s for silver. They didn't have the low side of it. But I only bring that up because of all these factors that we talk about. Right now, we're kind of in this lull. I think we're gonna get a move this week with CPI and PPI. We expect those numbers to stay soft at least for the early part of this year. The government number, right? They're trying to sell it right now. They're not cutting crap. I mean, come on. There's no actual cutting going on. All this they're doing is cutting some increases. It's like, look at what we did with the IRS on its funding. We're going to cut $10 billion. Yeah, but you raised it $80 billion. That's not a cut. That's still $70 billion. That's not cutting. Right? That's just spending less. Yeah. A lot of good momentum coming. And a lot of dollar weakness, unfortunately, because that's usually how those things go. 800-951-0592. Jason and I coming right back after the break. 800-951-0592. Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe and Jason on this Monday. $5 liberties today. $5.75. As again, we got a lot of market movers out there, mainly CPI and PPI this week. Not to mention the Dallas Federal Reserve head, Lori Logan, saying, hey, it's time to get a plan in place to come and gradually wind down quantitative tightening. So these are things, again, that we've been talking about that are going to be catalysts for the gold markets. So these $5 liberties, $575, 800-951-0592. Now the Dow's down today. Boeing's having a tough day as that flight from Portland, I want to say it was an Alaska Airlines flight from Portland to California. They had what they're calling now, it looked like it was a window had blown out, but what they're saying is this door plug, I guess that's what it's called, I don't know, this door plug came undone. They were asking the public for help in finding it. They found this in someone's backyard. But what was really interesting is they found 2 cell phones as well. So, I mean, a bunch of stuff, I guess, went out this hole, right? Where window, whatever it was, a bunch of stuff flew off. One of the phones, a person found it while they were walking. It was an iPhone. It still had power. And when they picked it up and they looked at it, it must not have been pass protected because they showed a screen. It had they checked the bag. It had their checked luggage information on the cell phone. The cell phone still worked. That's pretty impressive. I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I'm assuming the flight was, tens of thousands of feet in the air. I'm guessing that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. When it comes to technology, I'm not the best person to ask about it, but that seems contrary to the understanding, doesn't it? A little bit. It seems like that shouldn't have been still working, but yeah, iPhones are a little different animal than next to the other technologies, are they? Jack uses some of that stuff, and it just seems to be a little bit different than all the other stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, who knows? They may be upset. No, I had insurance on it. I wanted it to be broken so I could get a new one. I don't know, but they found one of them, and apparently it was. At least they could pull it up. They knew when they found it by looking in it that it came from that flight because they were able to pull up that ticket. So they called TSA or whoever they called to do it. And then over the weekend, how about this one? Speaking of a guy that owns a radio station, another one of the radio giants, Odyssey. They own hundreds of radio stations. The latest now to file bankruptcy. And listen to this. Somehow they had $1.9 billion in debt. And they say they're going to offload 80% of that. Ouch. I'd hate to be the people holding the bag. And they're going to be left with only $350 million. See, that's what I wanted. Why can't we do that? Oh, you owe a couple $1 billion? I don't know. How about $300 million? Is that better? Will that work for you? Right? I mean, but heaven forbid. Oh, wait, you owe a couple $100,000. Yeah, no way. You're done. Right? Amazing.
How many radio stations do you think they own or that they're running, Joe? Because it seems to me that if they're broad across the country, the radio stations, sure seems to me like the national advertising, which makes most radio stations up and run, are losing advertising dollars because, well, let's just face it, the internet advertising dollars probably better spent than the radio advertising when it comes to national. So that's what I'm wondering. With what experience I have, you got to almost have some local going on for you to survive as a radio station. But as a conglomerate, they do national. I wonder if the national money is just going somewhere else for advertising, Joe.
Well, that's the thing. They said after COVID, by the way, they own 235 radio stations across the country.
Well, that's enough for 5 in every state, Joe. That's enough for 5 in every state.
And well, that's how they do it, right? When they're in there, they normally own all of these, and it's funny because they're saying over the last 4 years, at 1360 over the last 4 years, we've had a 400% increase in our sales and our revenue. Now, granted, we started at a pretty low number, but those are the realities for us. But these guys, it's the exact opposite. And again, I think it's a lot of it. Some of it is. I'm sure it has to do with they're talking about stuff no one wants to listen to. That's probably the number one. One of the things, to my guess. But yeah, somehow though, don't worry about these guys. They're going to be just fine. They're going to get 80% of their debt thrown away and be left with $350 million. So we'll see if they can make it on that, Jason.
The only thing I can think of is they just want whatever independent stations are out there. That's just a push to squash the rest of them and get rid of them, right, Joe? Because why would you forgive all that debt? Wouldn't you want whoever you are loaning these putting these loans out for any company? Don't you want your money back? Unless there's some ulterior motive, that's how big business crushes small business, right, Joe?
Yeah, I got a text from one of our listeners. The plane was at 16,000 feet, so it was probably still going up with that door pop. So that phone fell 16,000 feet and lived. I don't know how's that possible. I dropped the phone out of my pocket, it lands on the ground and it smashed stuff, right? And you get the screen of death. Yeah, I don't know. Luck of the draw, I guess. Patriot Radio News Hour, final segment when we return. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason, Patriot Radio News Hour on this Monday. The $5 Liberties on sale right now, 1866 to 1907. The quarter ounce $5 Liberties, 500, not $5,000 yet, $575 today at 800-951-0592. Gold's right now at $2,040, off $9 and change. Silver's up 6 cents, $23.38. As Jason, I think, kind of the bigger news today having to do with property markets, not only here in the U.S., but in China as well, as their largest property investor filed for bankruptcy. And then over the weekend, the California pension system said, hey, we're going to need to borrow $30 billion because we can't sell the commercial real estate assets because it would spark a huge fire sale, which tells you, it's not worth it's just the debt's not worth what it's printed on. And then, of course, I think CPI and PPI, that's coming later this week.
You wonder if the California Pension Fund was making that statement more as a threat than as a informational situation. Hey, we want to sell these commercial-backed securities because we need to balance ourselves off. But, can you imagine, Joe? Is that like, hey, we're getting ready to dump. Somebody better help us. We're going to dump. Is it a threat? I wonder if just because they don't have to say that out loud about what assets that they need to try to liquefy or what they can or what they can or can't produce. But they actually put it out there in the open. They put it out there for the media to hear. So it makes me wonder if there was how much the commercial backs real estate market is really, really, really bad, but that somebody like the California pension funds, like, we're going to dump if we don't get some other help.
Well, and again, they said, I think what they were saying, and I agree 100%. What they were saying was, you better loan us the money. That's what they were saying. Hey, we're going to raise $30 billion, and you better loan it to us, because if you don't, right? We're going to take the entire commercial real estate market down with us, right? Because when you're talking the fact that they need to borrow $30 billion, I can't even imagine what that equates to in real estate holdings.
You know, we criticize California all the time, right? But you got to give them credit for playing the government game really well, huh? They play the government game really well, you know, and the debt-backed monetary system game. They seem to do really good in that, Joe, because they always seem to get what they need right when they really need it, right? You know, 2019, the pensions were all bad. Then the COVID money came in, and it saved them. And here they are again, right? And I guess with us, one of these days, someone's not going to help them. That's what it seems like. One of these days, someone's not going to take their threats or their pleas and save them at that last moment. So that's when you know things are going to go bad, Joe. So one of these days, they're not going to get that help they need.
Well, and again, got to remember, first time since the Great Depression, there's actual contraction in the money supply. Now, it's not as much as people would think. It's only contracted about $1 trillion, but that's huge. And it's still contracting today. This is why, you know, when you go back and you look at history, it kind of tells you soft landings are probably not the most likely outcome. 800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back with the Half Empty Cup.